This is Dr. Dan. We are talking with Bob Levy, inventor, attorney, and former chairman of the Cato Institute. Bob was a member of the legal team who successfully argued the Heller Second Amendment case in front of the Supreme Court. As you know, Bob, my primary interest is the deliberate abuse of federal government authority by all three branches of the government and their bureaucratic accomplices that violates the principles of limited government demanded by the Constitution. A recent Supreme Court decision overturned what was called the Chevron Deference in Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo. Chevron has been used for years to allow and justify a massive expansion of power by bureaucratic alphabet agencies to make and enforce regulations having the force of law that are well beyond the authority delegated to them by Congress. What is the Chevron deference, and what does the Supreme Court decision mean for the future of bureaucratic power?
The case was Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo, and it addresses what has become known as the Chevron doctrine. So part one of the doctrine goes like this. If Congress passes a law that directly addresses an issue and the intent of Congress is clear, then, of course, the statute controls. But then there's part two, and it is exactly what we were just talking about. Suppose the statute is silent or ambiguous. Then, under the Chevron doctrine, the courts will defer to any permissible, that is reasonable, reading by the agency who's charged with enforcing the statute. So in this Loper case, the court had to decide whether to overrule the Chevron doctrine. And that doctrine's been targeted by conservatives since its adoption 40 years ago, 1984. Conservatives argue that it lets Congress off the hook, and it gives far too much discretion to unelected officials. Over the years, Chevron, it's fair to say, has been the fuel that drives the administrative state. It empowers these executive agencies, and that's been true under both Democratic and Republican administrations. The good news is Chevron now has been overruled. So Chief Justice Roberts, joined by the 5 other conservatives in a 6-3 opinion, said it's not enough for agency interpretations to be merely permissible. They have to be the best. And it's up to the courts, not the agencies, to make that judgment. And then Roberts added that deference to an agency is especially problematic when the agency's own power is what's being litigated. And the Chevron deference that's been practiced for the last 40 years has produced not good law, but rather flip-flop regulations every time we have a new administration that takes over. So this Loper decision, I think, no doubt is going to lead to lots of new challenges to regulations by federal agencies like EPA and HHS and the SEC, and also by extension to presidents who issue and misuse executive orders. To the extent that lawmakers need help, they have all these other sources to turn to. But the courts are now going to independently review legal issues. Bottom line, this Loper case is a big deal. So maybe at last Congress will legislate and not pass the buck.